Hi, I'm Elaine Marthel, and you're listening to the Community Leadership Podcast.
And across from me, we have Elaine Marthel. Did I say that right?
That's absolutely correct. Thank you.
Thank you for being here today.
I'm glad to be here.
And thank you you're about to share with us your life.
Wow, that sounds interesting. Yes, I'm ready.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what does your community organization do?
We do youth leadership and development and academic support. We're supporting youth, particularly since we started around COVID time. We do a lot of that mental health wellness. So we're doing one of our biggest programs is Every Kid Outdoors. So we're getting kids out on the river, on the lake, kayaking, just really getting connected to nature, getting them in those spaces where they can just be calm, right? We had one of our particular participants, this one, shared about, that's Chrissy, she shared about, we were interviewed by the Stanford Review, and she shared about how just going into the middle of the lake and you could just row out there and just sit, right? So many times there's so much going at home. If you're the oldest sibling, so much going on in the hood, you're like, I just need to get somewhere where I can just rest. Mm-hmm. Just rest. Without hearing the gunshots, ducking and dodging the gunshots, just to get to a place to rest. And that's kind of what we do for us. And we do the after school support for them. So again, because in Palatine, I taught ESL. So for me, coming back into Chicago, I find that a lot of kids need help with reading. So our team is really focused on making sure we're improving these literacy and outcomes for kids.
So what part of Chicago exactly?
We're in North Lawndale.
North Lawndale. Okay.
Well, we get invited to a lot of places, but I'm trying to lock down the Westside, where I'm from first, before we start branching to these other spaces.
Okay. And you've been in Chicago all your life?
All my life.
So you had your kids here, you got married here.
I moved for a stint.
Okay.
Yeah, I moved for a stint to the north suburbs for about, 2012. Moved back about 2019. Yeah, so about 6-7 years out there. But that was because my son, we moved out there, and he's grown now. We're back.
How many children do you have?
5.
What are their names? Can we see their names?
Oh, wow. We have Chantel, Brianna, Amber, Jasmine. I forget Jasmine. And then Eddie Jr.
And grandchildren?
Oh, well, we have 6 of them. We did have one that passed last year, Cadence. We have Chrissy, Caitlin. We have Chloe. We have Journey, Ari. And then we have a new one, Brooklyn. And then Cadence passed. Cadence. She passed in August 6th.
Age?
She was 2 weeks old.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
That one was hard for me because that was the first grandbaby I ever lost. Yeah. And I remember going to the hospital. I took my granddaughter with me. And they were like, she wasn't doing anything. And my daughter would call me, and I'm like, we're praying. And when I would go there, they was like, this is the most the baby didn't ever moved. And, you're seeing the power of God, and the baby is moving. At the end of it, we know some other stuff happened. But in that moment, it was seeing the hand of God. Because she was born early, 25 weeks or something like that, 24 to 25 weeks. Mm-hmm. And so it's like we knew the odds, but we saw God doing things, right? And it was just like she was having these leaps and bounds. And then I remember my daughter called me. We were supposed to go up there. I had bought a book we had stopped at a store, like an event they had. And they had the book, Jesus Loves You. And I was like, are we going to record our voices? Since she's in a neo, we're going to let her hear our voice. Because they had said she was responding to your voice. She has not moved that much. And then I had to go up there, and I had to hold her deceased grandbaby. That was hard for me. Yeah. And I didn't know that it would even impact me because I didn't carry the baby, right? But it did impact me. And I really didn't know it because I'm so used to going and moving. But yeah, I never had that experience before. Because all my grandkids, I have them with me all the time, right? And this is like, again, and that's that part of me that's like trust. Because I'm praying, I'm like, God, you know, I've gone to the hospital and prayed for people to get up. And I'm like, what is, like, God, why? Right? Felt like David a little bit. You prayed for that baby and what happened? But yeah. So it's even hard. Because I remember when I went to go to an event, remember the shawl that I had on with this, and I forgot to take it off. And when I went to throw it on that day, and I looked down and saw the badge, the hospital badge, and it just sent me to tears. I'm about to cry now. It sent me to tears. I'm like, oh my God. Why God?
It's okay to ask that question. It's totally okay to ask that question.
Yeah, I guess for me, I have people call me a lot frequently, like, can you intercede for this? And they'll come like, man, God answered. Oh, God answered. And you're like, God, you have me pray for so many people. So this is just my journey with the Lord. I'm like, oh my God, I don't understand, God.
So how does that make you feel towards God right now?
Well, I know he does all things well.
Yes.
He does all things well. He makes no mistakes. So I trust that. It doesn't change my trust and my faith in him, because remember I told you back in that time he broke that. But you do have those moments. You do have those moments where you're like, man, God, you know, couldn't do a Gideon moment on this one. Like, if you be God, right? And I'm like praying. I'm like, God, do it. And didn't happen the way I was just like, what happened, Lord? Then we got the results. The file, we knew what happened. But in that moment, I'm like, God, I don't understand. But I just know this. I remind myself.
But your faith is still strong.
My faith is still strong, and I trust him.
Your heart right now is for the children, correct?
Well, for a lot of people, there's a lot of causes but like, yeah, the babies have my heart, man. They have my heart.
Your organization is based on?
Youth mentoring.
Youth mentoring.
Ages 7 to 17.
Okay. So you're seeing a lot of kids with struggles. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You've been through some struggles.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So you could talk to them about struggles.
Yes. Yeah.
Do any of the kids actually hear you? Because we could speak to kids. I was also a youth pastor. They could hear you, but they're not listening.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense.
They're not soaking it in. I too been through some struggles, correct?
Yeah.
So when you're doing your work, do you see the change?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I think the biggest thing for us is, I remember being on the coaching baseball a few years, right? And I was recommended to the police department to be a youth development coach. Right? I don't know anything about baseball except I went to school up the street from Wrigley, right? That's all I know about baseball. I don't know anything else. And I was like, you want me to be the coach? And they gave me they gave me the Franklin Park district, right? And I'm like, Franklin Park? Everybody's like, you don't want to be at Franklin Park because those kids, oh my God, da, 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 da. And I remember getting there, and they did lack the discipline. But as a youth development coach, because remember, I've been in their shoes. I've been the kid when you're told what to do. Who you talking to? You talking to me? Mm-hmm. No, you're not talking to me, right? Mm-hmm. And so I've been in their shoes, and so I was the perfect coach for them, because they were like, I remember we would go to our coach meetings, and they were like, last year, these kids, they wouldn't even run for a ball. They would just look at the ball. They would cuss each other out on the field. The pitcher would get thrown out the game because he was throwing stuff at the umpire. It was crazy.
Okay.
But we started doing, and my granddaughter was on the baseball team as well, right? But it was the part of giving them the skill. So before they hit the field, they had to come together.
Yes. And
they learned these vital skills of how to communicate. There were times I would bring my whole board to the park and connect it, and I'm teaching the lesson, because the parents on the field, like, you know how they go off on the referees. What's this going on? All this, you know. So I was that person. They were like, when you calm things down, right? And that was what I was known to. So before they would go cuss the ref out, they'd be like, Coach M, can you go talk to? Now I know nothing about baseball, but I know how to connect with young people. And I remember when I got there and I had my nails and looking very feminine, and the guys were like, you're our coach? Yeah, But, and it was just having them to even accept that space. But I think it was the challenging the stereotypes that we saw about the kids, about the coaches, and really putting myself in their shoes. Now, that year they made it to the championship, but it was interesting because they didn't think we were going to make it with this, you're the lady with nails and lashes. What's really going on? But it really just spoke to building that connection, because there were a lot of talented kids on the team, but sometimes when they would try to throw in all these talented kids, they wouldn't win. But the team that was the less skilled but had unity would trump every time. So the kids were learning this skill even in the middle of, but I'm the most talented player, what you mean? But it was in the unity that the kids saw victory, how they made it to the championship, right? So
without any unity, you're going to fumble on top of each other.
Yeah.
So I see that. So can you tell me a story on a victory that a young child had and you've seen it? God lets you see it with your eyes.
Wow, there's so many. You just want one story? Because there are so many. I remember one mom brought her daughter to our program. She had been kicked out of CPS because she had stabbed someone. No other program would take her because of the risk associated with that particular. You can't stab people. We don't want that risk in our program. I let her come in. We talked to the daughter. And as we started working with her, she was in an alternative school. And as we began to work with her, whoever in her counseling session, they will tell mom, whoever's working with her, kudos, because we're seeing such a big change in the way she's responding. Her grades are improving. Her behavior's getting better. And we begin to see those things. That's one story. We've seen kids where, like working with the police department, I remember they brought one particular kid to our summer camp. And they were like, I just thought we should bring him here before we take him to the police because he had jumped on his grandmother, right? Kid was 10 years old. And I said, okay, leave him with me. And for that summer, that was his, I won't say his punishment, but that's where they placed him instead of taking him to juvie. And we just began to see this kid. This kid also lost his mom when he was young, right? So I see myself in that kid, so I know how to connect with him. And so now he's doing great, caught up in grades. So a lot of times the kids just need that one-to-one connection. I could even say I've seen with my own babies too.
Sometimes you just need a hug.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid, I just needed a hug.
Yeah.
My mom worked two jobs and went to college. So when did I see her? Hardly ever.
Yeah.
I just needed that hug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I definitely see the success stories. That's the part. I remember one young lady, I'm in another program, and they asked me to come. She's foster care. So for me, I am a Christian. So I go into this space. I don't go in, I'm a Christian, whatever. So the young lady, she was like, I really like you. She said, because my mom, we started talking. And then I said, okay. She's like, I'm glad you're not like them other people because, I'm an atheist, right? Mm-hmm. So inside, I'm like, should I tell the Lord? Or should I don't tell her yet, right? Don't tell her. Because she trusted me, because she said she would never trust Christians because she saw what they did to her mom. Mm-hmm. So you see how this trauma keeps building.
Yeah.
And I was almost tempted to tell her, well, I'm a Christian, right? Mm-hmm. God says, don't tell her. And even like now when I would go see her, when I'm Mrs. Claus, and she'll be like, hey, just hugging. And that she was able to witness and feel the love of God. Because if I would have told her I'm a Christian, she would immediately put up the wall. Yeah. And so that showed me too, just learning that you can't always reveal all things, right?
It'll come out in you.
Right.
You don't have to say his words for it to show and the love that you show somebody.
So she was like, I like her. You should come back. And in my mind, I'm like, this still the atheist girl? And I'm going to be honest, I don't know this year she's an atheist. I think the trauma she saw her mom go through the church, I think that was her like, I'll never go to church. And I think I see that a lot with young people. Like, I'm never going to church because of the way they see us. And sometimes I don't think we do a great example for them in terms of, I'll try this Jesus out, right?
Who were you at 10 years old?
Wow. At 10, that's 5th grade. That would be, I would say, was the one of the most traumatic times for me. Yeah, yeah. At 10, because I remember having a lot of challenges as a young person and really needed mentors, really needed some help. And it was at the age of 10 that my mom sent me away to an institution. And I think that speaks to my why and the work that I do. And sometimes I believe that when we are, especially in my role as a mentor and working in youth ministry and youth development, a lot of times we don't really dig deep to find out why this young person is struggling. I lost my dad at 5. So from the age of 5 to 10, I was just that kid. Like if you would say something to me, I would cuss you out. I would roll my eyes. I would be very disrespectful. So I think that's why for the work that I do, those kids that people throw away the key and lock them up, I think that's why those kids resonate with me, because it was at the age of 10 when I was institutionalized.
Now, when you say institutionalized, what exactly?
Institutionalized, my mom took me out to it's a place in Maywood, Loyola, the Madden Mental Health.
Okay.
She took me there because that was the part of they thought I needed to be put away. They gave me these medicine, and it was just really traumatic for me. And that's why now when I see kids, it's just like meds are not always the answer. I wasn't a Christian at the time. I think I was going to church,
right,
but I really wasn't into the church thing. My mom was like, "You're going to join church?" Right, and I'm not saying this that you're going to join church because then the devil's going to leave you, right? But that was the traumatic time for me, and so instead of being like regular kids in the summer, I'm in Madden Mental Health, processing all of what's the experiences that I'm having. So, yeah, that would be. I'm glad we start with that first question, but
no,
yeah,
it's good.
That was traumatic for me.
How long were you there?
It was the entire summer, because it was the thing of, you can't leave. You have to earn the right to go back home, right? So my right behaviors had to be there. And so I remember being in this space and having my own room, and they would give you the meds. That's how I learned how to hold the medicine under my tongue, and then when they leave, spit it out. Because I'm like, nothing's wrong with me. Why am I here? And a lot of times we don't look at the generational things that are in families,
yes,
instead of just medicating, right? And it was just like, I'm not even supposed to be here. So at 10, I was a very smart kid. I was in science fairs. My grades said everything was well, but other things were going on with me as a kid.
Your attitude was saying, we need to get a hold of her.
Yeah. But here is the thing though, and this is why when whether I'm in the classroom or whether I'm experiencing kids in the library setting where we're at, don't always look for the kid that's the one that's the loudest and the meanest. Sometimes the kids that aren't saying much are very much in need. We look for them because they have to be in the gangs. They have to be cussing people out. And I wasn't that, but I still was having some struggles.
Yeah.
So, that was that part for me. And getting out of there, agreeing to go to the counseling and do all the things. And that was the shift for me.
So question there.
Sure.
So before they sent you to the institution, did they, let me get a little deep, did they look within themselves and why is our daughter acting this way?
No, because I now, so we're going to probably get down later in terms of I finally figured out the why behind some of this stuff. But back in that time, it wasn't. You're not asking. It was never the parents' fault, right? In my time of growing up, it was always kids are seen and not heard from, right? It was you didn't have a voice. You didn't have an opinion. I don't really care what your why is. I said do this, and this is what you're going to do, right? But I was always a leader. I was always opinionated. I was always like, let me share my why. Can you hear me out? But growing up, I wouldn't even say this the Black family. I just think it was a time where kids just weren't heard. And you're just going to follow the instructions that I told you.
And that's the times that I also lived. I'm sitting here 50 years old. Those are the times that I lived, yes.
There was times like my mom, she was a single mom. She had me at 15. So there was just skills she did not have. She wasn't really able to instill a lot of that stuff into me. So about at the age of 5, after my dad died, I was living with my mom for my grandmother for a while. And it was, my mom is 15. What skills does she have, right? The thing that when I finally got, if I can jump to why all of this makes sense.
You're still staying at 10.
We still got to stay at 10.
Staying at 10.
Man, I'm going to stay at 10. But yeah, so later in the conversation, we'll get to the part of that. But my grandmother raised me, and it was just really, that was the part that kind of helped me have a little centering.
Okay.
And then when my mom came back, because she was 15, that already should tell you, right? In terms of she didn't have the skill set. And I'm not here to bash my mom, but she really didn't have the skill set. So my grandmother was the one who raised me. And then when my mom, I guess, kind of started getting her life together, they sent me back to her. And that was just not. My mom liked having fun.
So, Elaine, what are your struggles as a young 20 years old that God has brought you through?
Wow. One of the challenges for me at 20, mom of 2 kids, I'm really asking for help, right? Asking for help. Growing up, I'm just like, I can do this. I got this. I don't need anybody's help. I got it. And a lot of times when you think that way, you're not depending even on God, because it's like, yeah, I've heard about this God, but no. I got this, because from a very young age, I've had to learn to be so independent. I had to learn how to take care. I had to learn how to just be the person, because I was the older sibling. So I had to always be in these adult roles. And so it was me. I got me. But that didn't make for a great relationship with the Lord, because in that you have to learn to trust him. And I had issues with trust. Because those who I have trusted have dropped me. So no, you will not get my trust, because I got me. And I trust in people.
When did that change?
I think as when I started having kids, because I had accepted the Lord, but there was an area in terms of deliverance that needed to happen. And when you start getting to these places of like, okay, what's really going on? In those 20s was where we became homeless. And it was in that moment that we were trying to buy a house and all these other things that happened. And the house thing wasn't working. So
when you say homeless, you had nowhere to stay, or you were like in a car?
My husband stayed in the car. It was a Saturn. Me and the kids, we were initially bouncing from house to house. And then we ended up landing in a building that was on 3333 West Washington. It was a motel. It had been condemned by the city of Chicago. And then there were those, so you had to kind of like step over things, because it really was a condemned building. It was not safe to be there. Even when you would flush the toilet, the people above. So it wasn't just us living in this place. We were supposed to be out. And so when you would flush the toilet, the people above us, you could just see the stuff running. It was just gross. So we were unhoused, but we weren't like, with me and the kids, we weren't outside, but we were in this condemned building that had been condemned by the city on Washington and Holman.
Wow.
Yeah.
And those experiences, what they do to you, those experiences?
Wow. Whew. I think for me,
because you're in your 20s now, right?
Yeah, this is my 20s.
This is your 20s.
This is my 20s.
And you're experiencing these struggles, this hardship.
Yeah. So what it did for me is like, okay, how do you process this, right? The good thing for me is in that sense of learning how to really make sure this doesn't happen again. So again, it's in me. I got it. Because, how we end up in this space is because somebody I trusted, and I told you I have trust issues. Mm-hmm. And every time I seem to trust somebody, I get dropped. No. So in that moment, it was like, okay, I had to really learn. In that moment, I remember we were sitting in a service, and the pastor that was there was preaching and all of that, because we were just like frustrated. We have these kids. What's really happening? We don't really know. I got to the place of it was in that moment when it was like you have to, and not that you have to sow this seed, but it was the releasing of the seed, because we need all this money We can't. You know how when you buy a house, they tell you don't do this, don't do this. You got to make sure you don't spend any money. You got to stay in this.
Right.
But we had given all our money for this house. But the problem was we trusted this person more than we trusted God, right? And we ended up in this cycle, and it was in that place where we then gave the seed, right? So it was that seed that helped to develop my trust. And that was a hard thing, because it was funny, because I remember my husband sitting in the service, and he's like, well, the Lord said. And I said, the Lord said, here we go with this Lord said stuff. And at that moment, I'm going to church, but I'm really not. Remember, I told you it's in me. And I'm sitting here like, the Lord said. But this time, so my husband knew when he turned to me and said, the Lord said, give this amount. I'm like, no, we're not giving this much to this church, whatever. And I said, yes, let's give it. He was shocked, because I think that was the moment God says, there's so much I have for you, but I got to get you off of depending on you. Yeah. Where you get to the place of depending on me.
Lean on me.
And that was the shift for me. And it was, I think the next week or so, we ended up moving into the house. And it was because I was so used to holding. Because remember I told you, I don't trust people easy. I'm really very guarded. And there was that point that broke that thing of me depending on me and saying, you got to lean to God, trust him, right? So that was my 20s.
So when you laid yourself onto his feet, right? You put it to his feet, those issues, those problems, you said, God, this is yours. And I'm going to trust in you with this tithing.
Yeah.
Because you say, when I tithe in you.
Yeah, you rebuke them, yeah.
And you got what you needed.
Yeah. Up until that
At his
point,
time,
yeah.
not your time.
Ooh, but see, how many times those are the challenges when we're going through these different, or we're evolving in life and growing. You trust God? What? No. Because again, by not having a father there, and then my mom really didn't have a steady man in her life, what is God the Father? Like, what is that? Right? God the Father. I don't even know what a father is.
Yes, we tend to trust the physical, but God is working in the spiritual.
Whew.
And he's saying, just hold on. I got you, but you got to have me too. Yeah. You got to believe in me, right? And once you did that, that's when everything started happening for you. Yeah. And the blessings, I bet, I'm not sure, we'll get into this conversation, but I bet the blessings kept on coming.
It did.
And coming and coming to where your grandchildren now know the Lord.
Yeah.
And know charity at the same time.
Yeah. So that was the shift for us.
Yeah. So now into your 30s.
My 30s.
Till now. 30s till today. Who are you? Who if someone would see you, they would say, this is that person. What would they say about you?
In my 30s?
Till now.
They would say I'm an inspirer. I inspire people. I'm authentic. I'm a leader. Those are the three things I hear a lot from people. You're such an inspiration. Yeah.
So Elaine.
Yeah, Carlos.
What a wonderful conversation we're having. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
Wow, the next 5 years. That is actually in our planning that we're working on with CLF. One of the things is I see myself really going, developing more young leaders. I really want to have a leadership camp for the kids, not waiting until they get 16. So I really see having a space for them, developing them, really investing in our young people more. Me, I want to be more vacation more. I've not really, I remember working, and I can count in 12 years I was at a job, how many times I called off, right? So I really want to start vacationing, I really want to start vacationing more. I know that's 5 years, I'll be almost 50. Let me see, I'm 52. I'll be 52. Oh, man, I'll be almost 6. I'm almost AARP ready.
No, you. At my 50th birthday, which was in October, it was in October, I got the AARP magazine.
Did you sign up?
I did. They had some great deals in there. They had some great deals. I was going to jump on that. Like, deals on hotels, restaurants, insurance, life insurance. I'm like, My wife was like, you saying that? My wife is 3 years older than me, so she's like, sign up.
Yeah, you get the discount, you know. So before I made 50, my husband was already over 50. So yeah, we that's our discount for auto insurance and house insurance. But yeah, I'm just really at a place of like, okay, God, what do you want me to do? You know, recently I've had, have contemplated going back into working, and I've had great opportunities come. And people say I'm crazy, like, why you turn that job down, girl? And I'm like, no. Now I'm at a place because I know it's been broken years, but sometimes you find that thing rising back up.
Yeah.
So I'm really just saying, okay, Lord, what's the plan? Right? Now it's planning with him. What's your plan for me? What's the expected end, God? Because the best plans that I can lay, if it ain't from him, is no anyway. And I don't need the plans and purposes of God in my life failing. So I think for me, I try to make sure I stay in this moment, but also say, okay, God, what's the future legacy? So I'm training these young people to replace me. Because most time when you're the founder, I founded something later in life. And so for me, I'm like, I don't want to be there till I want to train and kick in new fresh.
They could stand on your shoulders.
Yep. So that's the biggest thing for me is really asking the Lord, what is up next, God? What's up? Where do you want me to go?
So Elaine, if someone would give you $100,000, what would you do with it?
Probably give it to my church. I'm being honest.
The whole 100,000?
I would.
What happened to 10%?
No. I've always been a generous giver. I think even as a kid, even though I struggled in church, I've been a church secretary since I was like 15, 16.
Okay.
Right? So going into banking was like the natural thing for me because I knew dollars and I was in those board meetings with those deacons. Right? And so it's like that thing. But yeah, I think I'm going to tithe more than 10%, honestly. Right?
Absolutely.
But there is such I would definitely take me a vacation. Right? I need a vacation. But as far as like it's organizationally wise, I would really set up some things for our young people, right? That's what I would do.
Amen.
I'm learning not to always give everything away. I'm trying to learn this strategy of sow, save,
Well, God wants us to live abundantly, doesn't he?
Yeah, but
He does. So we give, but we also got to give ourselves.
Yeah, but
because we don't take care of ourselves, we could not be able to
that's where my
give.
struggle was, Carlos. That really was where my struggle was, which takes me back to the place of that 10-year-old girl.
Yeah.
That was my struggle because in the church, we often find ourselves just doing stuff. Because you find your hand something good to do it. And the stuff that without really having the Holy Spirit inspire these scriptures, you'll be doing stuff in the flesh because you're not rightly dividing what the word says. And so we would be giving away stuff and just giving away stuff. I believe God blessed it because of our ignorance, but we would literally give away stuff. And I look back now, I'm like, that wasn't even God. That was us trying to be,
But that's the God inside you. It's at the same time. Listen, what would I do with $100,000?
Yeah, what would you do?
Definitely give the church money.
Yeah.
Definitely give the church money.
Yeah.
Because I see what our church actually does for the community as well.
Yes.
Which is, right now, it's a warming center.
Oh,
we got the warming centers going on. We have they take showers right after church. We have like little mobiles.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
People could take showers. We feed them. And every Mondays and I think it was Wednesdays, Dee could probably tell you about this. They go out and feed the homeless underneath the viaducts. So definitely give the church money more than actually, like you said, more than 10% because I know they need the money.
Because it's the need is so great. Yeah. And I think the part of us as Christians, we're driven by compassion, right?
Yes.
And so how do you not have that compassion fatigue? Like, I got to help everybody.
Yeah.
And some stuff you have to let some people sit in because it's their disobedience to the Lord, and they're having to process the decisions they made from whether it be poor stewardship. And so discerning that stuff it has been better evolving over time. But I would be like, you having a problem? Oh, I got you. And my therapist, she's like, Elaine, you're a solutionist and you like to solve people's problems. I want you to just wait 24 hours before you answer anybody.
Ooh, that was good. That was good. The pastor that was sitting right there, right before you,
Really?
spoke on that. He spoke on that.
Yeah.
Waiting. Just wait 24 hours.
Wow.
And see where your mind's at
Yes.
in those 24 hours.
Yes.
Do you really need that? Do you really need to do that? Do you really want
So
that?
maybe the Lord is saying something to you, Carlos.
Really? To me?
Two people came back and confirmed his word.
It might be.
I'm just saying.
Jay, we got to stop buying equipment.
Jay say, what I got to do with that? I know, but that was the part for me. Like, because I am such a giver and our family are givers, that was the part where we were. It's a blessing. I want to call it a curse because it's always a blessing. But it was the blessing, but it was the challenge. Because people know, just call it Marthels. They'll give it to you. We would give you the shirt off our backs, right? But some of this stuff, if somebody would shoot me an answer in my inbox, I'll be working on my own stuff. Oh, I know that answer. If I'm not quite sure, let me look it up and I'll stop doing to find solutions for everybody else. Instead of really training them how to find the solution themselves, like walk you through that. Okay. And so I had to stop doing it. I remember one of the young ladies in our program when we lived on the South Side, and she had the police were going to come get her baby, and she called me. They coming to take my baby because she was crying on the phone. I was like, oh my God, I got to go get the baby. I didn't even ask my husband nothing. I'm gonna go get the baby. You already know that's a challenge, right? Oh, yeah. I didn't even ask my husband, can we even get the baby? And at that time, we were in the suburbs now, so we got all this space, big house. And then the husband said, no, stop. And I was like, stop. Pause. And I had to stop. And then we had to walk through. He says, I want you to start walking your young people through the decision-making process. Because you keep running, showing up, but you're really not developing them or yourself the way they need to be properly developed. Now when a young person calls me, we walk through, okay, so what have you done so far, right? So it's not just let me give you the answer or let me be the answer. And sometimes you are the answer to what they, God will use you to help them solve that problem. But now that's not my first response. If I feel like I'm too emotionally connected, I'm waiting 24 hours. I'm waiting now. Yeah, and that was hard for me because remember, let's get this done. Let's get this done. And now you can't do that. Sometimes you just got to wait.
So really, last question.
Okay.
If you were given a wish to change your struggles or someone else's struggles, which one would you choose?
Wow. I would not choose either, honestly.
Why?
Because I believe that it's in your struggles, in the adversity, is where you learn to be strong. Come on, somebody. So when you say, take away the struggles, you're really taking away the experience. The growth, how to be better, right? So you'll forever be a babe. Much of what I can do now is because of the adversity, because of the struggle, right? And I can't control what other people do anyway, so they might need that experience to grow into whatever it is that God has for them. So honestly, I wouldn't take away the struggle because every struggle that I have had has made me who I am today.